Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast, instant reaction show from Ohio State's 56-21 win over Rutgers. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
It was the least interesting of times.
It was very much the least interesting of times. So much so, and I probably shouldn't even say this. There were times where I would be like, I'd start to doze off a little bit, like during a stoppage in action, or sometimes in the middle of a play. Mm-hmm. There's just not a lot interesting here, and you don't want to be here. And I think we saw some of that from the Buckeyes themselves today.
Yeah, the game was like, literally when the Buckeyes got off the bus, and it was like, all right, they're here, so now they've won the game, so now just let's move on to the next week. But then Rutgers gets the opening kickoff, immediately turns the ball over. Ohio State punches it in seconds later. Rutgers gets the ball back, immediately turns it over again. Ohio State punches in it again. It was 3 minutes and 36 seconds into the game. Rutgers was receiving its third kickoff.
Yep.
Okay. So at that point, there's no chance. There's no way that unless Ohio State, all of Ohio State's players get amnesia and forget how to play football, the game is over at that point.
So Ohio State wins the toss and they elect to defer, I'm like, what are you doing? Just take the ball. Get Justin Fields as many snaps as you can in the first half. Don't worry about getting the ball out of the second half. And so, 2 plays in, they get the ball anyway. And Tom, at one point when they were up 14-0, Ohio State was on pace for about 240 points.
Mm-hmm. So really, I was correct with my game prediction of 222-0, but Ohio State really,
but
got
for
off to
Ohio State,
really they got off to a hot start and then really tailed off, and they didn't finish the drill.
No, and they could have, but I think more than not wanting to be here, I think it was just, as Brian Day said, you just got a mix of a lot of young guys, second teamers, third teamers, and it's not. They're not used to playing together. They're not used to playing in this. They're not used to just having to be relied upon like that. And so they give up a couple of plays. It only takes one mistake to bust something big. And really, 56-21, it's immaterial. You leave healthy, presumably. We talked to Justin Fields afterwards. He seemed fine. Didn't even say anything about his knee. Got his hand stepped on by Ben Victor, who was trying to help him up at one point. But it wasn't pretty, but it didn't need to be. Clearly, Ohio State was the better team.
Mm-hmm. What are you basing that on?
I'm basing that on human intellect and plus the stat sheet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where Ohio State had nearly 600 yards of total offense, and Rutgers, I believe, had 231.
231 exactly. Yes, and. Yeah, 594 yards of offense. It was like the quietest 300-yard passing day in Ohio State history. It seems like This was Justin Fields, 15 for 19, 305 yards, 4 touchdowns, and you 3 carries for 30 yards, and it was still that was okay. He wasn't great today. It was fine. It was all just kind of fine.
It was all just kind of fine.
You know what this game reminded me of? I was thinking about this on the way back up to the press box. The FAU game. Yeah. Ohio State just explodes out of the gate. They're on pace to win 900-0. And then it was just, you could just sort of see everyone kind of go, all right, this is over now. And, and then they scored a couple touchdowns in the second half against the backups, and they had the one score in the first half. This was the first quarter touchdown Ohio State's allowed all year.
That's crazy,
and it was against Rutgers, just as we all would have predicted.
But again, it was another special teams gaffe that allowed it, against Wisconsin. It was a special teams issue there that was allowed a 30-yard touchdown drive. But give Rutgers credit, they did it. Ohio State. But even Ohio State's starting unit, you're looking at Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Tyler Friday were in the lineup. Sevin Banks was in the lineup. Mm-hmm. So they didn't even really
it wasn't even the starters.
Exactly.
it was like
they never went into this as a serious game.
Right. It was half of the ones and half twos because you had no Chase Young, you had no Jonathan Cooper, you had no Damon Arnett, and just in case you're wondering, Damon Arnett is supposedly fine, no concern. This was just kind of held out. He's had
the hand-wrist thing forever, so no reason to.
Why risk it? Yeah. And so, and it was just kind of, and then you saw, I mean, the substitution pattern was pretty liberal even early on in the game. And you know, you're never going to hear a team say, yeah, this was just kind of a joke, and we knew we could have done literally nothing and won, and it's fine, and we treated this as a joke. But they kind of treated it, I mean, they could have taken it, maybe, I don't want to say they treated it like a joke, but they probably could have taken it more seriously if they had felt the need to.
Definitely. This was very much a scrimmage type of thing where you know, in practice, the 2,000 rep club, where the veterans can sit out, don't have to necessarily do all of the reps, and the young guys can get in. This was that, you know. They didn't want to play JK in the second half. Ryan Day said the only reason they put Justin Fields back out there is because they didn't feel like 28 points was enough. They were up 35-7, wanted one more touchdown, then when it was 42-7, 35 is enough. I'll tell you what, Tom, 14 would have been enough if they wanted it to be.
Probably. I mean, if they kept the first team defense out there, probably.
But obviously, no reason to do that. And now it is Penn State week.
It is.
If there was such a thing as Penn State week. I mean, this is the week where Penn State is the team that Ohio State plays on Saturday.
Last week was Rutgers week.
Exactly. So. # Rutgers week.
Indeed.
So, and now we can finally move on from Rutgers, talking so much about it. Man, so much about Rutgers. A lot about Rutgers. And really, there's nothing. Even as I'm putting a headline on the Gamer, it's like, what do you say? So I ended up writing like Buckeyes, beat Rutgers by enough or big enough, because it was a blowout, but it was like 56-21. You give them 21 points. There have been games like this where Ohio State wasn't this much better than the team and still win 56-21. This was it was kind of like
vaguely disinterested might be a good way to.
I don't know, vaguely, but
yeah. I mean, this was a perfunctory game, it's
contractually obligated to play.
This is on the schedule. I mean, Jonah Jackson after the game. Someone asked him, was he, concerned or nervous or whatever about coming here? And he just basically said, it's on the schedule, so we come here. So, and it's, and he was getting asked in terms of, the emotions of returning.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that's just kind of how everyone was like, well, the Big Ten says we have to, so here we are. And
did David Arnett even travel? Did he travel? Did you see
I didn't see him on the sidelines, but I wasn't particularly looking for him. I was looking out on the field. And
Steel Chambers played today, so that's his 4th game. So he's got no more room.
Yep.
I kind of expected more success on the ground today.
Yeah, the play in the trenches on both sides of the ball was not particularly dominant from Ohio State, which you would have expected, just paving Rutgers on the ground and then constantly getting pressure on the quarterback. There was not much pressure on the quarterback. I think Devon Hamilton might have had one sack, and that was it. And it was just, I was down on the field. I was shooting photos today, and so I was focusing on defensive ends. It's okay, maybe I'll shoot Zach Harrison getting a good pass rush. And it was just no one got real close. There were sometimes they got kind of in there, but there wasn't a lot of.
There weren't even any let's throw some stuff on film for Penn State and Michigan to have to worry about.
Yeah. It seemed like it was very, I mean, you had a better view from up here than I did on the field, but the defensive game plan seemed pretty vanilla. There wasn't, I don't remember seeing really many blitzes or it was just kind of, okay, get in, get out, move on with life, basically.
Yep. And, I said we were going to move on from Rutgers, but we still could talk a little bit about the game.
We have to have the Jalen Gill conversation.
There's Jalen Gill throwing deep, finally. They had some success there with Chris Olave. That was good to see. I think they need to continue to do that. Ben Victor was pretty good today as well. But yeah, let's talk about Jalen Gill, because that was the Jalen Gill that we have seen in camp, that we've been waiting to see this season.
Yeah.
Just take a little simple screen and make one man miss, turn on the Jets a little bit, and make another man miss, then just fight into the end zone, showing his strength. He's more than just speed. Really good to see from him, and I'm sure he's pretty psyched about it. I know, you see, Jameson Williams was pushing him into the end zone, so you know he was excited about it too.
Yeah, that was a every once in a while we'll have a guy where we're telling you, like, okay, this guy's coming, guy's coming, and then it'll take a while before you actually see it on the field. Like, that was like, I think everyone probably kind of went, oh, okay, yeah, okay, now I get it. Like, yeah, all right. But yeah, that was a real impressive run. And, that was a time of the game where that was fourth quarter, 8 minutes left. It's 49-14. There are about 5,000 people in the stands at that point. But man, there was the will to win, like the want to, the 4 to 6 A to B, like whatever cliche you want to.
Yeah, and we talked about that before the game and all week, how that could be why you score 70 or 77 or 222, because Jalen Gill still wants to score no matter what the score is, because he doesn't get to play as much as he would like, and so you saw that drive and that determination. And Ryan Day said it was one of his better weeks of practice, and it's never a coincidence when you get a play like that after one of your best weeks of practice. And you hear coaches say that all the time. Hey, where did this come from? Well, he had a really good week of practice, probably his best yet.
Well, and that not only sort of preps you for the game mentally and physically, but also if the coaches see you really working hard in practice, you'll hear them talk about, like, hey, so-and-so had a great block and we really wanted to reward him with a touchdown pass later. Sometimes that you have a great practice, you really show out in practice and put in the work. Sometimes that's, you are going to get a chance to get some touches, because he almost scored another touchdown
right
down the other end of the field in the third quarter.
Yep. Let me ask you this, Tom, see if you know this bit of trivia, because I do not, because I didn't research it and I didn't bother looking it up. When was the last time Ohio State had two tight ends score touchdowns in the same game?
It was actually today. It was against Rutgers.
That's right.
2019.
I should have watched this game. I told you I was dozing off.
I had the nice brisk wind in my face, keeping me wide awake. Yes.
Yeah, they had the windows closed up here for our safety.
Yeah.
But Luke Farrell had a really good game. Made some really nice catches back in the back of the end zone, and some nice pinpoint passes from Justin Fields as well. It was good to see those guys getting involved, even down the field. And then Jake Hausman had his first career touchdown catch. That's another thing.
That was another cool moment.
Jalen Gill's first touchdown. Jake Hausman's first touchdown catch, and he's been here 4 years.
Yeah.
And I believe this was his second catch in his career.
Yeah.
So
that was a really cool.
Yeah.
He came in as an extremely highly rated tight end, and has just he's played, but it's been mostly like as a blocking tight end. Yep. And again, he's like one of those good soldiers on the team that just does what they ask him to do, plays his role, has been a real contributor this year, but just doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Yeah. So then he got to show up on the stat sheet. That was a pretty. And
cool then when he finally, I think he had help with the PAT, and then when he finally gets to the sideline, the rest of the tight ends are mobbing him.
Yeah,
because they play four of them. And then he finally gets to get out. He's not always out there, but he's out there, and he finally gets into the end zone, and everybody was just thrilled for him, and that's always fun to watch.
Can I ask a question that may sound stupid?
Oh, please do.
Is there any concern in your mind about Drew Chrisman? Drew Chrisman has had a couple.
Yes.
The punting the last couple weeks has just not looked like it has prior to that, and it's like. Is there what's going on there? And
Tom, it may not be politically correct for me to say this, and I probably shouldn't say this, but we all know the answer. I believe he got engaged back in the spring.
Well, it didn't impact him the first 6 weeks of the season.
But it eventually catches up with you. I think we can all agree on that, right, Tom? No. No,
this is me sliding out of the picture.
No, but seriously, it is a concern, because he's he was, to me, the best punter in the nation coming in, and for most of the first half of the season. But then he said it's not just not pinning anybody; it's shanks, it's short stuff. It's just bizarre.
It just looks off. Yeah. You haven't seen him just really bomb one or drop one inside the 3 and roll it sideways.
Lack of practice, not lack of practice, but lack of doing it in the games.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It has just sort of stood out as he's been so consistently excellent for years. Yes. It just has seemed a little odd, and that's one of those things that if he's he netted 35 yards on average, 35-yard average per punt today, and against Rutgers that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And literally, pretty much any game they could have been fine with 35 yards a punt. You're going to have you've got 5 more games coming up, and
you need those.
You need him to be what J.K. Scott was for Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
You need to pin a team back so that you either stop them from getting outside of the 10, and then they punt back, and you've got 1st and 10 from midfield.
Yeah.
Or the whole plan to win is based on Drew Chrisman pinning defenses and guys getting to the ball and before it gets into the end zone. But even there's just very few of those where they're chasing it to the 5. Right. It's very odd, and what it might be. Cameron Johnston has been gone a long time, and I think all of the Australian has worn off. There's no more Australian in Drew Chrisman.
Crikey.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what he needs is a visit from Cameron Johnston.
Cameron Johnston.
He's lost his Australian punter mojo.
Cameron Johnston was at the Maryland game last week. Cameron Johnston and Sean Nurnberger were both there. So
that shoots that theory to crap.
And it had such solid scientific basis too. I mean, I can't believe that.
I know. That's 2 of us.
One thing that was kind of interesting after the game, this is actually something we had talked about on the drive out, was, Ohio State's got 6 more games. 6 games in the NCAA tournament to win the national championship, and they're probably in that same kind of mode where it's like you just keep winning your games, and they're going to kind of get gradually harder as you move along. This was, if you're the number 1 seed, you play the 16 seed, and sometimes you look a little sloppy, but you turn on the, hit the gas, pull away, comfortable, easy win, and survive in advance. Well, they survived in advance today. Round 2's against Penn State next week. Round 3 against Michigan. Round 4 Big Ten championship, and then the Final Four is literally the Final Four of the college football playoff.
Exactly, and I think that's a good way to look at it. Go ahead.
That was something that Ryan Day actually talked about, and he talked about it today.
Oh.
Didn't he? Maybe not. Maybe it was just players who talked about it. Jordan Fuller talked about the fact that Ryan Day has been framing things as the a March Madness kind of run for them. So, and maybe that's helpful to think about it that way. Ohio State looked a little up and down and slightly disinterested against some team from the SWAC today.
Yeah, totally.
And they still won by 30 something.
Right.
So.
They beat Coppin State by 30. Oh wait, that was the Ohio State club football team that beat Coppin State by 30 in the first round of the playoffs. I believe it was the semifinals. So they go on to the championship game. Ohio State club football team, probably thanks to some of the Ryan Day's words of encouragement this past week and advice for the club football team's head coach. And clearly, it worked.
That's got to be a pretty talented team to overcome the coaching that they've got. I think that's...
Yes, that's true. And Tom can say that because...
The guy who coaches the club football team was on the Ohio State beat last year. Good friend of ours.
Yeah, so we can give him grief. It's okay.
We can give him grief. You want to do a few listener questions?
Yeah. What do we got?
We can do listener questions first. We need to acknowledge that promotional considerations were provided for the Buckeye Weekly podcast this week by the producers of the Last Man Standing podcast. Fine podcast produced from lovely Columbus, Ohio, about a very interesting case about a doctor who was sent to prison for fraud and embezzling money, but as they have sort of investigated this, it's one of those kind of investigational podcasts. It's kind of it's a really crazy case, and it's basically like he's the only one involved in this case who shouldn't be in jail, and he's the one who's in jail. So if you are interested in any kind of true crime kind of podcast, Last Man Standing, worth a listen.
Absolutely.
So all right, so we will now scroll back and start looking at questions. Brad says, "How was the food?" The eternal question.
Well,
the pregame food was great.
It was pretty good. We had some baked ziti, some chicken. It was decent.
There were some like sautéed vegetables,
yes,
like
some
squash
rice.
and
There was some fancy sweets.
they had, like a little mini eclairs and stuff. It was pretty good.
It wasn't bad.
No, the post game pizza was all gone by the time we got up here, so we may have to pick up some.
I'm not even sure there was post game pizza.
Well, there's
but there were boxes.
There's post game pizza boxes. So,
but I'll tell you what, Tom. Halftime, you weren't here. You were downstairs.
I was busy working. What were you doing while I was working?
Well, they brought out some hot dogs. Mm-hmm. They brought out some cheese sauce, some chili, some some chips. So yeah, it was some chili dogs, and you guys missed it.
Yeah, someone has to do the work. Thomas says Ohio State is so brilliant that good becomes a matter of not chasing your own tail. Can't wait for Ohio State to have a chance to feast on half-decent opposition. This team needs an occasion to rise to. Yeah, I mean, that's. I don't think they're going to look disinterested next weekend.
No, I saw this on Twitter because I wasn't with J.K. Dobbins. You were over there, right?
I was with J.K. Dobbins.
Somebody mentioned to him about not playing in the fourth quarter of all of these games. And what was his response?
They basically said, you're probably done sitting out fourth quarters, basically. And he said, I don't have to be. So, I think J.K. Dobbins believes in his team is what my takeaway from that was.
And we watched Penn State today play Indiana. They didn't look all that great, and it wouldn't be a shock if maybe the exact same score we're seeing today is the score we see next week against Penn State. Although maybe the 21 points would be a bit of a surprise.
You're picking Ohio State. If you want to give me 35 Ohio State or Penn State plus 35 next week, I will probably take that action.
Well, we'll see.
I have good news. I think the actual line is going to be about 17. So if you want to give me 18 points more than Vegas is, I will probably.
We'll see how I'm feeling.
Probably take that action. Brad says PSU will have their attention. Yep.
Yeah.
And also, hey, there's a nice gentleman named Chase Young who's going to be back next week.
And everybody's looking forward to that.
Probably.
Well, not everybody.
Well, no one in blue and white is looking forward to that. Who was that? Someone, I think, it was Malik Harrison, I think, said teams are scared of him. Like you can tell, teams are scared of Chase Young. Which, that's probably some good survival instinct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
David says special teams, especially punting, has dropped off. Yep, just talked about that. Fields seems to throw behind the receiver a lot. Maybe a concern from now on. I mean, he was 15 for 19 today, so it was fairly windy out there in the first half. It was weird. It was very windy in the morning, and then it just calmed down, and it was basically nothing at the end.
So
of
are
the
you
game.
saying it was the wind was maybe Chris Juggernaut doesn't have as strong of an arm as Justin Fields, and the wind impacted him more than it did Fields?
No, it wasn't what I was saying at all. I would never presume.
The Garrett Wilson muff. I thought it was interesting that they put him right back out there, and that was a situation where you're like, well, looks like he's probably done.
I turned to one of the people standing next to me and said, well, that's the last Garrett Wilson we're going to see this year.
But it worked.
No, and he was out there on offense as well. I mean, it was,
and I like that decision because this was the first time that he was not in total control of the ball. Mm-hmm. It was just once, and he had the other time like last week where he went after a ball maybe he shouldn't have, but he secured it, and this was just I think you have to allow players to fail, players, and that's what Ryan Day has talked about even back in the fall in camp. You learn by your failures, and so. If he fails and then he learns that, well, you better never fail, now you can't play.
Right,
Like, what's the point of that?
Right. That reminds me of the story of a young running back against Illinois in 1992 who fumbled the ball 3 times inside the 5-yard line and was never heard from again.
Yes.
That man
is
Paul Harvey. No. The rest of the story, yes. Eddie George, yes. Brad says, how windy was it? Is that why the passes were short? I mean, it was windy enough that it probably impacted some of those long balls a little bit. Like on the one to Olave, kind of up the hash, up the far hash, the top of your TV screen. I was directly in line with Olave, and he's running right towards me. And as he's running, he's like adjusting in towards the center of the field because the wind was kind of taking it towards the center of the field. Like when the ball really got up there, you could see the wind kind of pushing it. But down on the field, it wasn't. You know, the flag at the top of the stadium was whipping, and the flags on the goalposts were not moving really very much. LT Ironman trained 7 days to the last home game. That is just
the senior day and all that.
Every year we have this conversation, and it's like the season starts, and then all of a sudden we're here, and it's like, oh, it's going to be senior day next week. Like, what? How did that happen? Ohio State has played 10 football games already this year.
It's like we're already to the point where you ask all of the seniors, how fast did this go for you? And they're like, you blink and the 4 years just flies by. Even if for the 5th-year guys, we write these stories every year about like where did it go, where did the time go, and this season is just like 1/4 of that, so it's even faster than 4 years, clearly.
Yeah,
but it's the fastest 3 months every single year.
Yeah, I mean it's just you start the first week and just all of a sudden it's October, and then all of a sudden it's the middle of November, and it's like, how are we driving to Ann Arbor in 2 weeks? Like,
I almost wish the college football season could start in December and then go 3 months. That way we could it would make winter go faster, except for the whole having to play out the weather.
I was going to say, I don't think I want to go shoot photos if it's February in Columbus.
Clearly, use the Big Ten money, build some indoor stadiums. That's perfect.
Yeah, there's no flaw at all in that plan. It's fine. Everything's great. You have Twitter questions?
Well, do you think any of this today was players perhaps succumbing to a little bit of rat poison? Because for me, it was just a matter of the number of odd pairings of players who haven't played much in this game. The only score against the first team, and really, as we said, it wasn't really the first team, was the 30-yard drive, with the 126-yard, 27-yard run that they certainly gave up.
Yeah,
but I don't think it was rat poison. I think it's just a matter of when your coaches are telling you, we're sitting this guy, we're sitting that guy, we're sitting this guy, we're starting these guys, naturally they are going to let up. Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's impossible to – I don't think there was anyone in Columbus this week who said anything like, oh, Ohio State's really going to have to give their best effort to win this game. Like, and I'm sure that they spent time this week thinking about Rutgers and planning for Rutgers and all of that, but it's impossible to not be, they're not dumb. They watch the film. It shows up on
they
film.
Listen to the
podcast. Rutgers is not that great at football. That is something that comes across on film. You may have seen that on TV yourself, even if you are not a college football expert.
Did you see the first 4 plays for Rutgers today?
That was the first 4 plays of the game was playing an FCS team on junior varsity difficulty on just hand the ball to the other team and then give up a touchdown and hand the ball to the other team again and give another touchdown. Like it was legitimately like if they just do this all game, the score could legitimately be 100 points.
I was disappointed that Master Teague didn't bust one. He 10 for 45.
Yeah.
He's going to drop down in the Big Ten rankings.
Yeah, after we said there was a possibility 3 backs could go for 100 yards each. Yeah. 0 backs went for 100 yards today.
That's not our fault. Again, that is Ryan Day's fault for not allowing J.K. Dobbins to get his, which in turn would have made everybody else want to best that number. So clearly, do you think, and this comes from at the Greg Wagner on Twitter, will this team be pushed at all before the playoff? IMO, no.
They'll be pushed. push to like there will be a game that's 10 points in the fourth quarter, one of the next 3 games is going to be at least that close. And that's 31-21 in the fourth quarter is not going to feel like, danger or something like that. But it's you've got your starters in for 4 quarters. They will be pushed more in one of these next 3 games than they have been so far this year.
And you wonder, we've seen them handle the lone adversity was the Wisconsin game where they ended up, they get the punt blocked, they give up the touchdown, then they score 4 straight touchdowns. So they responded well there. How do they respond if they're only up 14 or if they're down at the half or something like that? That's Ryan Day thinks he knows, but as he says, you don't know until you see it play out. I think they'll be pushed. They'll be pushed by themselves with these two next games, especially where they know these are the biggest games of the season, and they will have to be prepared for them. They can't come out like this, and everybody will have to be on their best, their 1A. And as each unit will have to be perfect and strong, and they'll be locked in. But yeah, 10 points in the fourth quarter, I don't know, but they should expect it. They will expect a 4-quarter game.
If they really do go through the whole regular season and Big Ten championship game without playing a game where it's that close, then they're the greatest team in college football history. Because you go back and you look at even these like dominating teams, they always have like one game that's like, real close for a long time. Like I go back to like the either 2001 or 2002 Miami team, and they had like one game against Boston College. Boston College wasn't very good, but it was just like, I think they needed Ed Reed to run back an interception or something for a touchdown to like pull it out. And it was, and like those great Nebraska teams generally had one of those during the year. Was it the
95 Nebraska team where they didn't have everything was a double-digit win?
Yeah.
But I think the 2002 Miami team had a close win over West Virginia that year. And then, they also lost a game at the end of the season.
I don't remember that. Was that? Was that a?
It was on television.
Was it?
Yes.
I don't like to watch television.
I'm more of a radio guy.
It makes me dull. Go back to that 94 Penn State team. That Penn State team that just destroyed everyone. And they had an Indiana game that was 35-29, something like that. And it was like, this was not, some magical, wonderful Indiana team. It was just, Indiana. And I think if I remember that game right, it wasn't like Indiana was right into the whole game. It was just, they kind of hung around and they scored a touchdown or two at the end, and it ended up looking real close. You're going to have one of those. That's just how it is. So just prepare yourself that it may be Penn State, it may be Michigan, it may be Wisconsin after that.
It can't always be easy.
Right.
It's like it should be impossible.
It should be impossible, and after that you're probably playing Clemson or something like that, and guess what? Clemson's also pretty good at football.
Okay, this one is also from the Greg Wagner. After surrendering 21 points to Rutgers, is it finally time to go back to playing press man and walking our linebackers up to the line of scrimmage on 100% of defensive snaps?
I don't know what other conclusion you could draw. We did not see Greg Schiano here today. That was a bitter disappointment, but I'm not sure what made me think of Greg Schiano just then. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thomas just says the thing about this team is its dominance can come from both offense and defense.
Yeah.
That's why I look so forward to at least half decent opposition from Penn State and Michigan. That's the thing. This is not last year's like half team where it's an offense but no defense. Like this is the offense can be the best in the country, the defense can be the best in the country, and there's just you go through all the other teams at the top of the polls right now. There's not very many that can say that.
And the special teams as well could be at the top of its game. But that's another area where Drew Chrisman is kind of baffling you right now because he has the ability to dominate a game as we saw last year against Michigan State. And we're not seeing that this year. Somebody also asked if we are aware of the Oklahoma score.
Yes, I am watching the Oklahoma highlights over your shoulder right now.
It's a 3-touchdown game, 31-10. Baylor over Oklahoma at the half, getting ready to start the third quarter. I did not expect this.
I didn't really expect that. Especially after Baylor had just an absolute wet fart of a game against TCU last week.
Yeah.
9-9 at the end of regulation, and Oklahoma's defense is not good. Everyone has been pumping up Oklahoma's defense and gassing up Alex Grinch all year, and it's like, right, but if you actually watch the games, they're actually still giving up a ton of points. Like,
actually, they are.
He's better than Mike Stoops. I mean, okay, that's fine, but yeah, the Oklahoma defense has been pretty we talked about that. I don't know, one of the podcasts, one of the 17 times we've talked to the nice people this week, maybe the pregame show. About the...
No, Tom, I want a definitive answer. When was it?
I'm going to say it was on the Patreon show.
Okay.
That Oklahoma just... You could just... Watching their games, they just didn't have a good defense.
Yep.
It was very apparent. And that was going to catch up with them. Like, Oklahoma was one of those teams that if Ohio State should have been praying to get Oklahoma in the first round of the playoff, because that's a bye. Yep. Because if you have a team that doesn't play defense, like nope. That's not gonna work.
Because Texas carved them. They were able to go up and down the field at times. And Texas today loses at Iowa State on a 36-yard field goal at the end. Sam Ehlinger, 27 yards rushing to lead the team.
Wow,
and that's not very good. This is a soft team, and they were able to move the ball on an Oklahoma defense that was supposed to be fixed by the wonderful and great Alex Grinch.
Oh, Minnesota lost.
Yep, that's another one.
Boy, it has been a day and a half in college football.
Yeah, Clemson went down too to Wake Forest.
I don't think that's probably true. One thing we probably should acknowledge is the injury to Tua Tagovailoa.
Man,
that's
terrible.
I have not seen it yet, but I've just heard about it. That is
It doesn't look bad.
Bummer.
It's just he's getting tackled by a couple of guys. He's running, he's scrambling, and they land on him. It's just a freak injury. And then you start seeing stuff on Twitter from like people who would be in the know saying it's career threatening. It was like the Bo Jackson injury. You're like, holy cow.
That's awful. And I know that will end up getting filtered through the Alabama playoff prism, and that's fine. You can have that conversation at some point. But yeah, that is just that's awful because he is a fantastic player and has just not been healthy for basically huge chunks of the 2 years he's been there.
And now possibly career in jeopardy, and that's the last thing you want to see when he probably has Alabama's hopes this season.
Right. Well, and he's also 6 months away from being a top 5 NFL draft pick. So, that's life-changing money, and now that's all potentially out the window.
I'm sure there is an insurance policy of some sort for a few million,
but also I'm sure he would rather be playing than cashing insurance checks.
Anything? Ooh, Cincinnati finally tied it up. They're down 10-0 at the half.
Oh my, that's not
against
good.
USF. So Ohio State fans need to be rooting for Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Rooting against Texas work this week. You need the Buckeyes need as many wins over ranked opponents as they can get, and as soon as Cincinnati loses, they might get dropped out of the rankings.
Oh yeah.
And so Indiana losing today as well. There was really no way for Indiana, Penn State, and Michigan to all end up in the rankings.
Right.
And so them losing probably is fine because Penn State will move up, past Minnesota, like a spot or so. But that will give Ohio State a good win if they get it next week.
Yeah.
And then another good win over Michigan if they get that, who just totally destroyed Michigan State with a passing game.
Unless Michigan loses to Indiana next week.
Which is a possibility, but Michigan would still probably stay ranked.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to drop like 12 spots or whatever.
Right, but then they would if they lose to Ohio State again, then...
That's exactly the concern there as well. But I guess...
Ohio State fans will have to deal with the fact that Michigan may drop if
Ohio
State beats Michigan.
That's very correct. All right. Tom, you got anything else for this game?
I think we've covered everything.
Oh, man. Please say we have.
Well, then I guess we've covered everything. No. I can definitively say we covered everything.
No. I am looking forward to this week against Penn State. It is a fun game every year. It's not a rivalry, but it's just a fun game.
It is definitely not a rivalry. But it's a competitive series. It's been the last 3 years, I think the stat is they've been decided by like a total of 5 points or something like that. I mean, last year at Penn State, great, incredible comeback win. 2 years ago, maybe even more impressive comeback win. And then 3 years ago, that crazy game with the block punt, the block kick. I mean, all of that, and again, a big comeback. So
it's been fun.
Yeah, I guess the moral of the story is don't turn the game off early next week because whoever's ahead may not be ahead at the end.
Exactly. So we will talk to you Tuesday, right? That's our next show.
We'll have Ryan Day and player interviews on Tuesday. We'll do a regular show. We will, I'm sure, do at least one Patreon bonus episode.
This might be a 2 bonus week.
Yeah.
Right?
So this would, if you were interested, this would be a good week to sign up.
That's true.
Because there's I don't want to look ahead, but the week after Penn State week this year is also a week of some significance on the Ohio State sporting calendar.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about the schedule of that one. Of that week.
So patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly if you were interested in signing up.
Check it out, and we will talk to you guys Tuesday.